Hello and welcome. The similarity between chimps and humans has always been a subject of fascination, an idea reinforced by pioneering research that identifies common behavioral patterns. While some people have tried to set humans apart from other mammals, one woman did just the opposite. She dedicated her life to show where the connections exist. Jane Goodall's research in the Gombe National Park in Tanzania began in 1960, setting new standards in understanding. Dr. Goodall started observing chimpanzees under the guidance of renowned anthropologist Louis Leakey. And deep in the jungles of Africa, she made two discoveries that shocked the world. Chimpanzees are meat eaters and they construct tools. Now, although she may not have found the missing link between man and ape, she certainly came close to doing so. Now, don't forget, we take your calls on the show. You can reach us at the numbers at the bottom of your screen. Travelling an average of 300 days a year to speak about the threats facing chimpanzees and the environment, Dr. Jane Goodall has taken the time out to join us here in Washington, D.C. Great to speak with you.
Lovely talking to you.
I've got to start by asking about your Roots and Shoots organisation, which is dedicated to education and activism in youth, and because I know that's taking up a lot of your time and energy and producing great results from what we discussed earlier. Tell me about how receptive young people have been to that idea.
Well, it all began because young people seemed to have lost their hope for the future, and they just felt we'd compromised the world and there was nothing they could do. And so, in fact, this Roots and Shoots program, and it's symbolic that roots make a firm foundation to reach the water. They can creep through a brick wall, break it apart, and the little shoot seems tiny, but to reach the sun can break through a brick wall. See the bricks as the problems we've inflicted on the planet, environmental and social. Hundreds and thousands of young people around the world can break through and can make this a better place for all living things. So it's encouraging young people to learn about the problems, but then the key thing is empowering them to take action.
And that's what I was wondering. With young people often feel, especially in developing countries, they feel very unempowered. They feel they don't really have a say in their future. And I wonder how Roots and Shoots is actually helping to make them feel that they can control things.
It's making them feel they can, because they are doing so, and it's quite extraordinary how many of the programs are changing lives. They're changing lives in inner city, in rural areas. It's now in 97 countries around the world. We have programs for preschool right the way through university. Young people are coming together. It's about breaking down the barriers that we erect between people of different nations, cultures and religion, and also between us and the natural world. And these young people are empowered by taking action, see that what they've done is making a difference in their part of the world, get strength from the fact that other youngsters like them are doing the same kind of things in other parts of the world, meeting electronically or in person.
What sort of stories are you hearing coming out of the Roots and Shoots programs where people are proactively making things happen? What sort of things have you heard? I know, for example, in Africa, communities have come together.
Communities have come together. We have a program right along the coastline in Tanzania, and this is bringing together children from Muslim and Christian backgrounds and any other backgrounds that happen to be there. They're doing things together. And we have something which the head of the Islamic Nation in Tanzania, he said, I don't know another program where rich Christian kids are raising money to help their poor Muslim brothers and sisters. And it's very exciting to see what happens when young people come together. And we've seen it also in the big refugee camp from Eastern Congo. The refugees come. We have the program in the camp, but also in the Tanzanian schools outside the camp. And because a little resentment builds up, the Tanzanians are very, very impoverished there. And after a bit, the camps, they get better schools, better medicine. And there's a resentment. But because we've got the Roots and Shoots programs working, meeting, now we're told it's done more to improve relations than any other program.
And with Israelis and Palestinians too, I hear.
Yes, we have small groups in Israel and Palestine, and they have actually met and done things together. We fly these giant peace doves on the UN International Day of Peace, and we flew them on the two sides of the border at Nazareth.
You mentioned the UN peace doves because you are, of course, a messenger of peace. You were selected by the former Secretary General Kofi Annan. What did he say to you in terms of your mandate? What were you supposed to do for this?
Well, when he talked to me about it, I said, well, Kofi, I don't think I can do more than I'm doing now. I think every day is already full. He said, you're doing more than I would ask anybody to do. But it's about sowing seeds of global peace, because the Roots and Shoots has this shared mission. Wherever it grows, it's flexible. It can grow into any shape. It's the projects are chosen by the youth themselves, and so whatever culture it lands in, it will grow to be sensitive to that culture. But the philosophy is shared.
How does this all fit in with the Jane Goodall Institute work? I know you cram a lot in, 300 days a year. It's quite a tough schedule.
Well, I think, you know, the Jane Goodall Institute, which began in '77, was really to help to develop the kind of ideas and dreams that I had even back then. And so the Institute is now in 26 countries, and each one is autonomous, all sharing a mission, all sharing goals. And so, it's, you know, I have to do all this traveling because I have to visit the institutes, many of the roots and shoots groups. I must spend time back with the chimpanzees at Gombe. And the world is just too big for me. I mean, how do I get there?
You're doing
Jane,
a good job covering
please,
it.
you must come here. You promised to come here. And think of the places I want to go where I haven't been, like Afghanistan and Iran and Jordan and all these places, Israel, Palestine, which is so important.
We're glad we snagged you for half an hour. Now, Mr. H has been sitting there patiently. I have to ask you about him.
Well, Mr. H, you know, one of my reasons for hope is the indomitable human spirit. And he was given to me by a man who went blind at 25, decided to be a magician, was told it was impossible, said he'd try. The kids don't know he's blind, and at the end he'll say, things may go wrong in your life, you must never give up, there's always a way forward. So he thought he was giving me a stuffed chimp for my birthday 12 years ago, and I made him hold the tail. Chimps don't have tails. I said, you have no excuse. He said, take him with you and you know my spirit's with you. So he's been with me to 59 countries. He's probably been touched by at least 3 million people, because when you touch him, the inspiration rubs off.
Yeah. Now, when you do the, here you go. I'm going to be inspired for the next question. When you look at where you've gone in terms of your activism and conservative, working for conservation issues, do you miss the work with the chimps?
Well, I miss it, but I keep it within. I only have to close my eyes, and I can be back in the forest. And I know that the work is going on. I get video. We have a wonderful videographer. I visit twice a year to kind of catch up and fill my spirit back up again. And I wouldn't be happy there now, because I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I can't help the chimps by sitting in the forest with them. I did to start with. I brought them out to the world and explained who they are.
But you do get back to the Gombe Research Centre quite regularly, you said?
Twice a year, but it's just for a few days.
Yeah. In terms of what's known about chimpanzees, what's been learned since that time you started your pioneering research in the early 60s, 1960 onwards, what do you think is, what it is we've learned about ourselves through the study of chimps? What is it that we've learned that has perhaps made us understand the world around us better too?
Well, I think we've learned that we're part of this great, amazing, wonderful, awesome animal kingdom. There isn't a sharp line dividing us from all the others, as people used to think. And so we have, I think, a greater respect for the other beings, but it also helps us to ask, because they're more like us than anything else, what is it that makes us so unique? We are different. We send people to the moon. We're sending this broadcast out all over the world. I believe it's the explosion of the human intellect made possible by a language that enables us to teach about things that aren't present, talk about the past, plan the future, and have a discussion as we are.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get a couple of questions that we got from around the world that in advance people wrote in by email for you. And this first one's from London, from Julia, who says, have you ever been fearful for your safety around animals?
There is one chimpanzee at Gombe called Frodo. And he has it in for me for some reason. They have this very dramatic display, these big males. And he's not actually trying to hurt me. He's just trying to assert himself, which he can easily do because he's 10 times stronger than me. But that means pushing people and dragging them. And because the country is so steep, at any minute you could be pulled over a precipice. Actually, I think he deliberately doesn't do that. But it's a bit scary.
You named him after a hobbit. He's probably very upset with the name you chose.
No, I think he likes his name.
Well, we had another one that asked from Vancouver, from Canada. Mark wrote in asking, are chimpanzees smarter than humans?
Well, probably some chimpanzees are smarter than some learning disabled humans. But, if you put a human out in the forest, the chimp would be an awful lot smarter than the human. And there are smart chimps and not so smart chimps. And they've discovered now that a young chimpanzee has a photographic memory and can beat any human who's so far pitted against him for remembering where numbers are on the screen.
Well, this one that came in from Cairo, from Egypt, and Hala Ramahan says, of all your experiences with the chimpanzees, what stands out as the most illuminating?
I think the thing that's fascinated me the most is the long-term, affectionate, supportive relations between a mother and her offspring and the brothers and sisters. And they can live to be more than 60, and these bonds last throughout life. And it's absolutely wonderful to see how the personality and techniques of a mother can influence the subsequent development of her child. And if we can extrapolate and say, is this important for humans, this may explain a great deal of the dysfunctional behavior we find in some adolescents.
Now, does the is any of the stuff that any of the research that you pioneered early on, nearly half a century ago, has any of that, let's say, been refuted, but at least been changed or updated in a way that makes you look back and say, okay, I misinterpreted this, or I misunderstood this?
Surprisingly, almost nothing. I mean, no, basically, I got most of it, and obviously there have been refinings, and we understand the different aspects better, but no, not really.
You were actually criticized at the time for naming the chimpanzees rather than numbering them. I guess the whole scientific climate or the scientific community was very different when you first started examining, studying chimps.
Yes, the European ethologists were trying to make the study of animal behavior more of a hard science, and therefore it's better not to talk about things you can't prove. And so animals should have numbers because that was more scientific. But I'd never been to college, so I didn't know that. And anyway, I wouldn't remember the numbers. And certainly animals didn't have personalities. That was only us, I was told. And they didn't have emotions and feelings. And they didn't have a mind capable of thinking. Well, we know all that's not true now.
When you set up the observation centres and the food centres too, obviously you were skewing the environment for the chimps. Now, when you look back, would you have done that any differently?
Probably I would. It did turn out to be an amazing experiment, a natural one, I mean an unnatural one in nature. But actually, the moment we stopped the banana feeding, the behavior went exactly back to what it was before. So I think the main thing we did with our banana feeding was have some chimps spend more time together than they otherwise would, because they travel in these small, constantly changing groups. So we probably built up some friendships that might not have existed, but also some enemies as well.
And some aggression. I gather that the chimps were a little more aggressive sometimes than that.
They were aggressive when they competed for bananas,
right.
Yes.
We have a call on the line from London. John, what would you like to ask?
Yes, my question is very much, I appreciate for whatever the job the doctor she's doing, but what is happening in the east of Congo, and there are over 5 million people have been killed so far,
right.
But there are a lot of protection for the animal, for the chimpanzee, than the human being. What is happening?
All right,
so
okay.
we are focusing in chimpanzee than human being.
Okay, what John is saying is
Yeah.
that you heard that, that humans are being disregarded over
Yes.
chimps.
Well, the thing is, we have a program which is very strong around the Gombe National Park, opposite Eastern Congo, called Take Care. And this is improving the lives of people now in 32 villages in a very holistic way, everything from tree nurseries to agricultural methods to restoring overused farmland, microcredit for women, family planning, everything. And it's turned the people into our partners so that they are reforesting the bare slopes, which was causing them immense suffering because they had finished off the land and there was nowhere to go because there were so many. And we're trying now to replicate exactly that program in Eastern Congo and also in other parts of the world around wilderness areas to help the people, support the people in those areas.
So it is quite a holistic thing. It's not
It's
just,
completely holistic. Our Roots and Shoots program is in all these villages, and as I say, the forest is coming back, which is helping the people to have better lives. As far as the fighting, we can't really get involved in that, except to try and develop Roots and Shoots in the different factions and hope that it will improve relations between them, as it has everywhere else.
Tell me about the bushmeat trade and what needs to be done to combat that.
That is a very tough one because it's the commercial hunting of wild animals for food, And where we're involved in the whole Congo basin, it's changed from subsistence hunting with the introduction of roads built by foreign logging companies. And this gives transport for hunters into the deep into the forest where they couldn't go before. They go to the end of the road, they shoot everything, elephants, gorillas, monkeys, everything, and smoke it, and now the trucks take it back to town. And it's, you know, tons and tons and tons of meat coming out. It's totally unsustainable. The people living in the forest and around the forest are suffering, the pygmies particularly. So, you know, again, we're trying to work with the people to get them partnered, to make them our partners, to find other ways for them to make money than hunting in this way.
Can you do it without government and authority help? I mean, having the people on your side is one thing, but surely you need to persuade the government. They need to enact some laws or something.
Yeah, the laws are there loosely. I mean, people have other things that they're interested in. Unfortunately, there's often corruption and there's a lot of money to be made in bushmeat. We have the blessing of the government. We couldn't operate otherwise. That doesn't always lead to the results we would prefer, but we're doing our best with a lot of other NGOs and organizations like World Bank and things, because this bushmeat thing is huge. It's, you know, and we've got diminishing water supplies, we've got poverty and hunger. The problems in Africa are huge, and we're just one little NGO, so we act where we are on the ground with the people as well as the animals, because they're all in it together.
We've got about a minute, so sort of on a positive note, I wonder if I can look at what we might learn in the future. You know, looking at what's been learned in the last 50 years through your research about chimpanzees and our relationship with primates, what do you expect would be the next big step in what we learn about? What
we learn from the chimpanzees? Well, I just hope that it goes on helping us to understand that if we don't reach out to help the animals, then we're going to suffer. If they start dying, we're going to start dying too. If we don't care for the environment, then what's going to happen to our children? And we're all mixed up in it together. It's no good helping animals without people. It's no good helping people without the natural world. We need each other to survive, and through Roots and Shoots, we're jolly well going to do it.
We hope to meet some of the young people on this show sometime in the future. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. On tomorrow's show, we look at the rift between Fatah and Hamas in the Palestinian territories and how that's affecting the possibilities for peace in the region. Don't forget, if you have any thoughts about pressing issues around the world, send your emails to riz@aljazeera.net. We'll see you next time. Street Talk is next.